Welcome back to the Unbearabulls podcast. I'm Brandon Ruiz, and I'm here with
Jack Cowart.
And today we're going to be talking about some draft prospects, specifically quarterbacks, and we're going to be talking about the Bulls-Rockets game and Jazz-Hornets game. So who do you want to talk about first, Jack?
I am pretty excited for this quarterback scouting deal we got going on. This is sort of the first time I've gotten into it this early. And I think it's suitable that we start with the projected number one pick, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's where I would like to start too. What are your feelings on Trevor Lawrence?
So I have known Trevor Lawrence's name for quite a long time, which is something for me because I don't typically pay attention to college until about April. So usually I don't know the top prospects' names until maybe the start of the prior NFL season. But Trevor Lawrence has been in the public spotlight since he was 16 years old, 5 years ago. He was one of the best high school quarterback prospects of all time, and sort of since his freshman year at Clemson, he was anointed the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck. So I had big expectations when I got into my scouting process, and I sort of feel like that label is taking away from him because I don't see the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck. I definitely see a number one pick, but I don't think I think he'll have difficulty living up to the expectations that have been put on him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing I will say is that when I watch Trevor Lawrence, I don't see any magic. I know that sounds funny, but it's just there's nothing that really wows me when I'm watching him. Like when you watch a great quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, and just putting that out there, that's what they're kind of touting him to be, like a very, very high-level quarterback right away, right out the jump. So that's why I'm making this comparison. I don't see that from Trevor Lawrence. What I will say I see a quarterback that can read defenses and can make a couple of passes. I just don't know. I don't know about his arm talent sometimes. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like he has a whole lot of arm strength, and it does concern me because I think that does matter at the next level because how fast the guys are. I think in college you can get away with it a little bit more, but in the NFL you do need a little bit of arm strength because you will get picked off. And everyone gets picked off, but I think that specifically is a problem. He's obviously, like you said, been big on TV since forever. Now we've known him for about 3 years specifically really well. But I don't know if he's going to be as good as everyone thinks he's going to be. It's going to be tough to even be that good because to be that good, you have to be great. You can't just be good. I do think he could be a good starter generally because I think if you can read defenses, then you can start in the NFL, which I think he can do. But in terms of the talent, just the physical aspect of the talent, what it takes to be a quarterback, I don't really know if he has everything that everyone's saying he does.
I sort of disagree with the last thing you said there because I think he has all of the physical tools and sort of like the framework of the talent necessary needed to be a successful quarterback. He's the prototypical size. He's 6'6", 220 pounds. He's a great athlete. And like you said, he can read defenses. And those are sort of the size and the ability to read defenses. When you boil down what a quarterback needs at a very base level, that's it. And you said that you think he can be a good starter. And I agree with that because I have sort of with these three quarterbacks we're going over today, I have a list of strengths, I have a list of weaknesses, and I have a list of not necessarily weaknesses, but concerns. And when I was trying to decide what I thought of these three guys relative to each other, I realized that I had very few actual weaknesses for Trevor Lawrence. I just have a lot of things that give me pause. And I have two weaknesses down for Lawrence. And I have arm strength, just like you said, and I have deep ball precision. I think that he makes a lot of big plays, and that's why he's been living up to the hype the past few years. But when I watch his deep ball accuracy, I see a lot of people say he has great deep ball accuracy, and I just don't agree with that because he hits a lot of guys on man coverage one-on-one where his receiver beats the guy on a slant. And most NFL quarterbacks can make that throw every time. But the precision he has on those throws, I don't feel like he's getting it exactly where the ball needs to go. I just feel like he's getting it close enough to where his receiver can grab it. And like you said, that works in college. But in the NFL, the defenders are faster, and he's not going to have those wide open spaces as much. So that's those two weaknesses for me, arm strength and deep ball precision. I don't know if those things are super coachable, but the rest of his strengths, the physical tools, I think those are all able to be built upon by coaching, which is a good thing.
Yeah, in terms of physical tools, what I meant is just the arm strength. I mean, he's obviously a fast quarterback, and he can use his legs and stuff like that, but I don't really view that as being the most important thing in the world, because if you look at the best quarterbacks in the league right now, not a lot of them are kind of run-first quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson is definitely, I know it sounds weird to say, but he's definitely a run-first quarterback. And even that in itself sounds like a term that shouldn't exist. Like, how are you going to be at a position that passes the ball and be like a run-first quarterback? You know what I mean? Like, what?
Right,
Run
yeah.
first? But I do believe a lot of his game is pretty solid, and that's why I think he is touted so highly, because there's not a lot that you don't know. People have seen this guy for 3 years, and he's done pretty well for 3 years. He's definitely progressed a lot since his freshman year, that's for sure. But his deep ball accuracy, I agree. I don't know if it's the same thing, and I don't know if it's an arm strength thing or it's just he's not that good at throwing the deep ball. But what I have noticed is when he threw the deep ball to a lot of his receivers, he doesn't really catch them in stride that much. And I think that's a problem when you go to the level in the NFL, because the safety will be there. If your receiver has to slow down, the safety is going to be there. And if the safety gets there, it's either going to get batted down or it's going to be a pick. And so maybe he gets better at that, and that would be awesome for him. But we have to see that, we have to see that to believe that. And I'm not just going to say, oh, yeah, well, that'll fix itself, because if you could say that about literally anything. It's like we talk about in basketball. Oh, if this guy gets a 3-point shot, then he's going to be great. Yeah, if. How long has Ben Simmons been trying to get a 3-point shot? 3 years now? Probably longer. And it's still not there. So just because you want something and it seems simple doesn't mean it's obtainable. So I think it might be for him, because he seems like a pretty smart guy. What I do like about Trevor Lawrence is that I think he's pretty good at identifying how to throw the ball over the linebacker, which I think is kind of difficult for a lot of guys, because I think you see the corner, you see the safety, right? But you forget to see the linebacker underneath, and then sometimes that's where some picks happen. I see where he lofts the ball up, sometimes over the linebacker, and it looks like, why did you throw it like that? It took forever to get there. But he actually was kind of positioning it just right, so it wouldn't get picked off by the linebacker, but also it would get to the receiver in a good place. But I think that's pretty important. Obviously, that's not deep ball stuff. That's more of like 10 to 15 yard stuff, But I kind of do like that, because that means he is seeing what you're supposed to be seeing, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I agree. I came away with a similar view of his ability to read the defense. I think his biggest struggle is reading the secondary on sort of medium length or deep ball passes. But his biggest strength in reading to me was like the first half second after the snap, when he's reading what's happening at the line and maybe the linebackers. His ability in the read option, when he's either deciding to hand it off or run it himself, I think he's really, really smart there. He makes some great reads on the line that I think that's sort of a natural instinct, and you can't necessarily teach that to the ability that he has it. You can obviously teach it to some degree, but he already is so smart at reading the front seven, and I think that's valuable in the NFL, because so much offensive line play is in question these days.
Oh, yeah, totally. I also want to add that I think he's really good at scrambling.
Yeah,
When you watch him get away from the pressure, that's pretty good. I think sometimes it does go to his detriment because I think he freaks out sometimes, in the pocket, or he's trying to just get out, and really like you're doing all this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to decide which way to scramble, and then you get sacked. That happens to everybody though, but that's what happens when you have good legs on you and have a pair of good legs on you. You think you could outrun anything, You can make something happen. A lot of these guys, quarterbacks, they have a ton of confidence, and I definitely think Trevor Lawrence does. And so they think on every single play, you can make something happen.
right.
And that's a
Yeah.
good mindset, But sometimes you got to say, you know what, maybe this is just dead. But I understand, too, because you want to get out of the pocket so you don't get the grounding call. But when you think, sometimes you could think yourself into the ground, And I think that occasionally is a problem for Trevor Lawrence. I think generally, though, I think he's a very smart football player. So I think that'll definitely help him a lot going forward.
I did make a note about his tendency to freak out in the pocket. I wrote that he has decent footwork, but he has a tendency to go like Rodgers-esque, sort of this mode where he freaks out and says, okay, YOLO, I got to make something happen. I think he does that too early and too often, and his reaction to pressure is worrisome for me. Like, so he'll do his drop back, and then the instant he feels pressure, he'll just square up to the line and either scramble or just collapse forward. And that it reminds me of Rodgers in a bad way, because we can't say that he's a Rodgers level talent yet, obviously. So with that as a concern, it sort of offsets that strength I was talking about, his ability to read the front seven. It's great that he can read it and run it and decide to hand it off at the right time. But if he's a split second too late, which is more likely to happen in the NFL, his reaction to pressure needs to be coached.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that's hard to coach, as we've seen with Mitchell Trubisky, I mean, there are some quarterbacks, right, that I will say, for Mitch's sake, there are some quarterbacks, though, that they're kind of more quarterbacks that need to roll out. They need to move. And that's okay. But if that is the case, then your system has to be geared towards that. So I do think Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback that could be a pocket passer one day, but I think I think his instincts are to move as soon as you feel pressure. I don't think he's one of those people to stay calm and collected and stand in the middle like someone like Tom Brady and make minor adjustments, like micro adjustments in the pocket. Just take a little step this way, take a little step forward, climb the pocket. Not everybody can do that. And it is cool when it happens because it looks like, like this dude's in the Matrix or something. But not everyone can against them, because I think there are some quarterbacks that are successful when they are scrambling, and it's definitely something to concern if you think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be just like a pocket passer. He's definitely going to go number one. So I don't really have any questions there.
I think that with Trevor Lawrence, sort of, it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to Jacksonville. And if we can agree that he's very strong in the short passing game and in the sort of mid-range passing game, I think he's a great fit for Urban Meyer, actually. Because Urban Meyer, if I understand, has not been a big deep ball coach. So if we can give Trevor Lawrence time to work on that aspect of his game, I think he starts off looking like a number one pick. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where we think he's a bust instantly, even though that's never the right conclusion. I think he's going to look very good in his first season.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a bust. I wouldn't say that. I think whatever team gets him, they're going to get good use out of him, barring injury, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, I think he'll do okay. I just don't know if he'll be as good as everyone says he's going to be, is mainly my takeaway. And I know you could say that about a lot of people, but I would have said about Deshaun Watson, that he was going to be good, because he looked great throughout all of college, and there were some pick problems like throwing interceptions and everything. But other than that, Deshaun Watson just looked like a winner, you know? So I know it sounds funny to say that, but I mean, he did win and he did play well. So I think it's easy to make that determination sometimes with certain players.
Yeah, for sure. And for what it's worth, Trevor Lawrence has been a winner too. He's known winning his entire life.
That is true. I definitely agree with that. Do you want to talk? Who do you want to talk about next? I guess so. We're only gonna do 3 people today. On our next show, we'll do some more, but right now only 3.
I think we go Justin Fields next because I feel those two have been tied for the past few years. They've sort of been viewed as the number 1, number 2 quarterbacks for a while.
Okay, yeah. So basically, with me for Justin Fields is. I am a fan of quarterbacks that can move. Definitely. I think it's a plus when they can move. I just don't like when their first reaction is to run, because I think run first quarterbacks, and it sounds so weird even saying it, run first quarterbacks, what is this? But a quarterback that is definitely going to go to running when things get bad, I feel like that kind of limits your offense so much unless they are so elusive like a Lamar Jackson. Because Lamar Jackson, he really can run the ball so well. So he's, in my eyes, a special case, where no quarterback has ever ran the ball as well as Lamar Jackson has. It's just true. Statistically, you could see it, and if you watch him, you could see it. He's just untouchable at times. So you can't get super mad about a guy like that. However, I don't think there's a bunch of Lamar Jacksons out there, and I definitely don't think Justin Fields is a Lamar Jackson, but he plays as if he is. And I think he has incredible arm strength. I think he can throw the deep ball, which is pretty good. I think at times he is he's very accurate with the deep ball, and sometimes he isn't, so it's hard to tell. It goes kind of from game to game with him. There's not a lot, I feel like, the consistency there that I would like, but I do think there's potential. I just don't know how consistent a player like Justin Fields can be.
I think you're right about his inconsistency. That was one of the sort of the questions I put down in my notes. But I disagree with you on sort of the archetype that Fields is. I don't think he thinks he's Lamar Jackson. I think he's Deshaun Watson. Looking at his rushing stats, he runs, it looks like, about 10 times a game. He's been doing that his past 2 years. And I think that number is going to come way down when it gets to the NFL, because what I saw when I was watching the tape, I saw a guy who wants to stay in the pocket and only runs when he feels he has to, which is admittedly a bit often, because he has the talent. Why not use it, right? But I think Justin Fields is actually pretty cool under pressure in the pocket, and I think he wants to stay there and make passes. I don't think he's actually like a top tier passer at this point. He definitely has deep ball accuracy. He wants to make the big play, but that leads to making risky decisions. That for him lead to that inconsistency where you don't always know what you're going to get. So I think he's the Deshaun Watson archetype, where he's a read option quarterback, but he's going to lean more towards passing, because, like you said, he's not Lamar Jackson. And I think whatever team he goes to, at this point, for me, it's either the Jets or the Falcons. I think whatever coaching staff he has is going to tell him that he's not Lamar Jackson. And even though he is a good runner, his first instinct needs to be passing.
Yeah, I definitely see the Deshaun Watson comparison in terms of how he plays. In terms of talent, I don't think it's like the same. But I do think that he probably does want to play like a player like Deshaun Watson. I just know at times I don't remember which exact game, but there was a game that I watched and he was running so much, and it did look like they were kind of designed for him to run. though, so it could have just been kind of what I just watched. It was the last game that I watched of him, so it probably could be clouding my brain a little. But I will say that with his deep ball accuracy, it is good. But I kind of don't like that he only looks at one receiver like every play. That's something that really, really concerns me. If you're only looking for one person, that's not going to work in the NFL. Because first of all, the linebacker and the safety, and it's so crazy to me also in the NFL how good they are at just looking at the quarterback's eyes and knowing exactly where to go,
right.
And keeping up with the wide receivers and if there's a running back also, rolling out and everything, they can see everything. It's insane for what football players do, especially the linebackers and safeties. But what I'm saying is, if he does that in the NFL, that is not going to work. Everyone's going to know where the ball's going. They're going to know immediately. And so that concerns me because I have seen so many plays of his where he just, I would say, at least from what I see and what I remember, I could be wrong. It looked like 80% of the time he doesn't stray off from the first guy he's looking at. And that's not good. Unless, but it's different in college because they're always open. So maybe, you know what I mean? So maybe he doesn't have to. Maybe he actually can do it. But I just, you don't see it. So how are you going to grade it?
Yeah, I agree with you that it's a problem. It's definitely not a good sign. But I don't think it's as bad as so many people are saying it is. Because I see it too. He definitely does it enough that we're talking about it, obviously, but I think he's definitely flashed the ability to use his eyes correctly, look off guys where they need to be looked off.
I will say also is that we're probably also hypersensitive to something like that because of Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I feel like it's been talked about so much that now we're just, dude, every flaw that a quarterback has, we're just so hyper aware of. Oh my God, this could be really bad,
Yeah.
So maybe it isn't as bad as we're making it seem.
Right. I think it's a problem, but to me, it's actually a symptom of a bigger problem because, like I said, I think he's definitely shown the ability to do the opposite, to go through his progressions, look off defenders. And as long as a quarterback has flashed that ability, coaching staffs can cultivate it. To me, the bigger problem is that as a passer, he's really slow. Not necessarily like physically because he's actually a very quick runner.
Yeah.
But when he's in the pocket, it looks like he's moving through quicksand to me. His legs, his upper body, his eyes, he just looks slow, and that reflects in the sort of locking onto one receiver. I think it looks that way because he's just very slow at moving from his first read to his second read, and by the time he makes that decision, the play is already basically dead. So I think what a lot of people are seeing as locking eyes with his first receiver and not thinking to go through his progressions is actually just him knowing what he has to do but not doing it quickly enough.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I don't think that it's like it. I don't think that there's there's obviously a possibility that could be right, but it is hard to tell, because maybe you're right. Maybe he knows what he has to do. He just can't do it at the right speed. But even then, that is still a problem regardless.
I think it might even be a bigger problem. It just that he's just too slow. I know I'm driving that into the ground, but if he's slow in terms of the ability to read progressions, you're right. It doesn't matter if he knows what he has to do, even though he has shown the ability to do it. It's a consistency thing.
And for me, it is hard to, I guess, respond to the slow thing because I didn't even think about that in the same way you did. But I will say in terms of even just like the consistency thing is that I will say some games it looked like not Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields was doing really well and getting the ball off quickly, especially in the game where they played Clemson. Most games, however, were not like that. And so I feel when you look at a player like Justin Fields, there are a lot of question marks. It's not like when you're watching a player like Joe Burrow and you look at him and you think, okay, well, this guy knows what he's doing. He should be in the league already. He's just too good. He has the consistency there. You know exactly what he is, and he's going to be a really good quarterback. But when you look at Trevor Lawrence, I feel like you also know what he's going to be because in his play, he is pretty consistent in how he plays. I feel like I know exactly what Trevor Lawrence's abilities are. I know what he can do, and I feel like to an extent I know what he can't do. With Justin Fields, sometimes he has really good games, and then sometimes he doesn't. It just in terms of his accuracy, I think that's a problem. And the speed, when you say it now, looking at it, I can kind of see what you're saying. But before, I didn't even consider that to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the consistency is troubling, but the upside, I think, is really enticing from an NFL GM's perspective, because this might be a hot take. I think Justin Fields could be a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence in a couple years' time. I think he has that raw ability that coaches love and scouts love. So I definitely think there's a route to him being a better quarterback. It might not necessarily be the most likely path because I already feel pretty confident in Trevor Lawrence, but the physical ability I think Fields has is greater, and I think he has that Deshaun Watson quality we talked about where he's just a winner. I think he wants to make big plays, and with the proper coaching, he can make the big plays.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, when you look at also a player like Jalen Hurts, a lot of people counted him out, and obviously we haven't seen enough of him to actually say if he's going to be good or not. But what we have seen so far in the NFL, it has been good, and we have seen good things. I didn't think he was going to play as well as he did with the Eagles. However, he is playing pretty well. And Carson Wentz, someone who was at one point touted as a very good quarterback, because he was almost MVP. He was playing a lot better than he did, and he's definitely not a veteran quarterback at this point in the NFL. Even he was in his rookie season, so maybe there is a chance that Justin Fields figures it out and finds a way to utilize his abilities that he has. Because you're right, in terms of physical abilities, I think physically he's a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence, but I think that right now, kind of the mental stuff is what sets Trevor Lawrence apart from him. But what I will say, though, is that I do like going into Zach Wilson now. I think Zach Wilson, he might have the mental stuff and the physical stuff that you need to be a really, really good quarterback in the league. It's just hard when you look at a quarterback like him because of the competition level. It's definitely wasn't the same as what Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were going up against.
Yeah, so Zach Wilson sort of burst onto the scene with this past season. Like he wasn't like a huge prospect in recent years. So I was very curious to see what I was going to see with him because I didn't know who he was at all. And I saw a lot of good things. I think he definitely has the most concerns of these three guys, and I'm maybe I'm a bit more apprehensive to call him worthy of a top 5 pick like he probably will end up being. But in terms of his physical capabilities, I'm not as high on them as you seem to be, but in terms of his ability to read the game mentally, I think he's shown great strength there.
And I would agree in terms of his mental stuff. Like, I actually do think he is very good at taking what's given to him. I will say on occasion he tries to extend a play for too long, and it'll cost him. But I think generally he is pretty good at finding an open receiver, and I feel like he is good at getting the ball there. The reason in terms of the physical qualities I'm talking about is that I think he throws a beautiful ball. It looks nice, it has a nice spiral, And I think when it comes down to it, he could throw a rocket to someone and kind of squeeze the ball in a place that you didn't think he could squeeze it into, because I think he has the power to do that, the arm strength to do that. And that's more of what I was talking about personally. But I really think with that mixture and having the mental stuff there, that could be a really good mix. I will say, obviously, when you look at the competition level, it's different. So it's harder to gauge. But what I did like, though, even it's going to sound weird, I feel like because the competition level was a little lower, the receivers were guarded a little bit better. And so people weren't as open in his games. And so I feel it was nice to see that, okay, when receivers are covered pretty well, generally, he can still get them the ball, which is hard when you're watching a Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence game, because I feel like generally they're passing to wide open receivers.
I'm very happy when we see the same thing with a quarterback. I have basically everything you said there written down in my notes. I wrote down that he's a great arm talent, and he has that tight window accuracy that you love to see. I also wrote down that he holds on to the ball too long, even when the pocket is clean, and he definitely had a lot of clean pockets.
Yes, blocking was pretty good for him generally.
It was. But I will say that when he did face pressure, it was rare. I feel like he also didn't handle it too well. Like he sort of wanted to escape early, do like a Josh Allen style rollout, which I don't think he's big enough to do consistently. But the one physical thing about him that gives me pause, aside from his size, which is going to be talked about to death, the one thing
is 6'2", right?
Yeah, 6'2", 210, small guy. Aside from that, I think that although he has great arm talent in terms of getting the ball downfield, I don't think he throws a hard ball. Like, there's not a lot of zip on it. And that might sound like nitpicking at first, but I actually think that's very important for a quarterback prospect. Like, you want to see hard balls consistently, and I'm not seeing that from him. So even if he can get it into the tight windows, I think in the NFL, his receivers are going to be covered even better than they were. And if you're not throwing the ball with a lot of zip, then these defenders have so much more time to make a play on the ball that he didn't really have to deal with in college.
Okay. I mean, I thought I saw him, I guess it sounds funny to say it, but I think his balls had a decent amount of zip on them when I was watching it, at least. Because, I mean, I don't know. I think I went from watching Trevor Lawrence and how he kind of is I would say, a finesse type of passer. So his passes didn't have a lot of zip in general. You know, they just, okay, I'm going to get it there in a place that just the receiver can get it, and that's it. I feel like that's the way he throws the ball. And I feel like Zach Wilson's just, I'm going to try to get it there before the defender's able to get there, and kind of tries to throw the fastball right to the receiver. At least that's what I saw. But so I don't know. Actually, I thought that was personally, I even thought that was one of his strengths, just because I feel like, okay, sometimes you do have to throw that fastball right down the middle or to the sidelines and just hope that you can get it there before the defender catches up. And so I feel like I did see those things. And even on some of his deep balls, I felt like they had a little bit more oomph than the other players that we were looking at when they were throwing their deep balls, except for Justin Fields. I mean, I feel like they're kind of close. It's just when I watch Trevor Lawrence's deep balls, they look like they kind of floated for a while. But with these two players, I feel as if they have the power to throw a deep ball. I even think in terms of Justin Fields and Zach Wilson, I saw them throw pretty nice 60-yard passes. And it might have not been 60 yards in the stat sheet, but from where they were standing, it was 60 yards.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm going to, in my eyes, okay, they threw the ball 60 yards, I know technically it was probably 50 or 55, but, I mean, that's generally you're not going to ask quarterback to throw any further than that, right? So I kind of liked what I saw in terms of arm strength, and I think personally that it's a little bit of a strength for Zach Wilson.
What do you think about his mechanics, his footwork? Because what I saw was I feel like he relies on his arm too much, and he's not using the rest of his body to throw the ball. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like he just throws with his upper body. He's not trying to use his hips. And I'm curious to know if you saw that too.
See, I didn't really think about that when I was watching him, but now that you say that, I can see what you're saying. But I think it's not always a problem. You know what I mean? Sometimes it is a problem in the NFL because that's what people talked about with Jay Cutler. You know, they're saying, well, he needs to plant his feet. Well, Patrick Mahomes doesn't plant his feet, and look at what he does. Not all the time. You know, I know it's not good to compare people to somewhat of the greatest, talents at the position, but I'm just saying that maybe that is a problem, but also maybe it isn't. Maybe he's like one of those people that can just kind of throw the ball from any position. Because there was one pass I saw where he was rolling out right. He's rolling out left, and he was going, and then he turns, and he kind of just only turns his upper body, and he throws the ball all the way across the field, and it got there really nice, and I thought, oh, so this guy can throw on the run. This guy has an arm, like a real arm.
I've seen the Mahomes comparison quite a bit. And like you said, it's difficult to compare to Patrick Mahomes, and people are mostly just going to do it because it gets attention when you call someone the next Mahomes. But I think that it basically comes down to our disagreement on whether or not he has the zip on the ball. Because if he's not using the rest of his body to throw, if he has zip on the ball, that might not matter that much because we're talking about coaching a lot. That can be coached. But from my perspective, if he can't throw the ball hard consistently, he's going to get wrecked. Not only because of his size, but if he's not moving correctly, defenders know how to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about how sometimes, I feel like sometimes he did look comfortable in the pocket, and then other times he just didn't at all. It looked like he was when the pressure wasn't that bad, he was cool. But when the pressure was, I feel like when he had more than slight pressure on him, he started to freak out a little.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Much in the same way Trevor Lawrence does, actually.
Yeah, right? Isn't it weird? But maybe, I guess now too in the NFL, so many quarterbacks roll out, where it's not the same thing where we're looking at Tom Brady style quarterbacks, So maybe it's not even a problem because of how offenses are kind of curated now. They're kind of made for quarterbacks to move a little because all these quarterbacks are more athletic. I will say, however, it does cause problems sometimes because even with Trevor Lawrence and you throw a bad ball sometimes when you're freaking out because you just want to get the ball out, That happens all the time with young quarterbacks, even happens to veteran quarterbacks. So, I mean, maybe that'll be a problem for the both of them when they get into the league.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Zach Wilson sort of reminds me more of Baker Mayfield than Patrick Mahomes, in the sense of they were both like these very strong arm talents that really needed to be coached. So with Zach Wilson, I think I would prefer to see him on the Atlanta Falcons. If we're assuming that these top 4 picks sort of stay the way they are in terms of what teams are picking, because with the Atlanta Falcons, I think Zach Wilson can sit a year because Matt Ryan, as far as we know, is still going to be their quarterback. And I think Zach Wilson could learn from Matt Ryan, not in the sense of their physical capabilities, because Matt Ryan's not a huge runner, but Matt Ryan and the Falcons coaching staff, they got a new head coach, Arthur Smith, I think. Both of those guys have the ability to teach Zach Wilson how to be calm in the pocket, which is one of his bigger weaknesses.
Yeah, I think that could be good for him, and I honestly think that would be a good fit too. I agree. I think playing for a team like the Falcons. I think that'd be really good for Zach Wilson, because I do also think that Zach Wilson is a player that could really gain a lot from sitting and learning, because I think because of the competition level and stuff like that, I think he does have a lot to learn. I think generally the defenses he was playing against are not even close to what he's going to see and what he's going to be used to. So I think being on a team that he could sit would be awesome. Because if he goes to the Jaguars or the Jets, yeah, he's not going to sit. You know what I mean? He's going to have to play. Like they're not going to say, "Oh, let's wait a year." Yeah, let's wait a year. No, I mean, maybe they do. Okay, maybe they do if stadiums aren't fully open next season, and then you can't worry about a ticket draw. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, of course, if you're having people come, you're going to worry about tickets, and of course, more people would want to come and probably pay a higher price if this new quarterback draft prospect is starting at QB. You want to see that live, don't you? You know what I mean? If the Bears got someone we thought would be a really great quarterback, I would pay money to go see them. You know, so honestly, I would see it in that case. But I generally think, though, that if he gets drafted by those two teams, which he might, he's going to have to play, which I think will be detrimental to
You mean
his,
the Jags and the Jets?
growth. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I'm curious because there's a lot of talk right now about who's the number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. And so let's say, theoretically, the Bears decided to trade up to number 2. Who would you rather the Bears pick?
Assuming that Trevor Lawrence is already picked, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, out of these three, I would say Zach Wilson. I mean, but that's just because I think I think there's more of an upside there. I don't know. I think so, but it is hard to say because, like you said, I think the pressure does get to him, and that's a problem. But I guess if you have a really good line, which I think if the Bears draft well this season, maybe they could have a good line. I think if they get 2 tackles, I think the Bears line could look completely different next season. So if you have a line like that, then there's not really a problem there when someone's having a hard time with the pressure, because you can stop the pressure to an extent. It's not always going to be stopped. They're not superhumans, but someone eventually is going to, someone eventually is going to get inside. But if you can minimize that, then I think that generally it won't be as big of a problem for a quarterback like Zach Wilson. But it's tough there. I don't think that these two guys are for sure things, but I wouldn't be upset if they got Zach Wilson.
I gotta say I'm going the other way. If the Bears were to pick number 2, I would rather have Justin Fields on my team.
And just because you like what do you like better, I guess, in terms of Justin Fields?
In a macro sense, I think he fits the archetype that I want NFL quarterbacks to be in 2021.
Okay.
I think that the Patrick Mahomes style is the exception, and I would not trust Zach Wilson to reach his full potential with that style in the NFL. I much prefer the Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields type quarterback. I think that's where the NFL is going. Zach Wilson definitely has the ability to run. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I want the guy who can run more often and is more willing to make the big play as a quarterback.
You want the Madden guy. I get you.
The risky play, because Zach Wilson throws it deep a lot. He actually had one of the highest yards per attempt. I think he had one of the highest in all of college. But despite that, I don't think he was making a lot of risky plays, whereas Justin Fields was. And to me, that screams upside.
Okay. Oh, okay. But didn't also Zach Wilson have, I think, the highest completion percentage in all the quarterbacks last season?
Let me pull it up.
He was at. I know towards the end of the season he was around like 74%. I'm pretty sure.
Zach Wilson finished with a 73.5% completion percentage, which is very high.
It's extremely high. I just think see that's funny because I do think our ideal quarterbacks are slightly different. I will say though, Deshaun Watson, I would love for him to be on the Bears, and I think anyone would love to have him, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs. I think I think that's the only team that would say, you know what, I'm okay. But I think if you ask every team who they'd rather have, they'd probably rather have Patrick Mahomes. Now, I do think that the difference in how good Patrick and Deshaun are is a lot smaller than people think. But I mean, one has a ring and one doesn't, so it's always going to be kind of weighted a little differently in that sense. But I don't think it's fair to say one is way better than the other, because if you look at the tools they have, it's just not the same. So I do think that either ways would definitely work. But I just think about also with Zach Wilson, if we're going to keep Matt Nagy, which it's looking like he's going to have a million chances, I don't think that the Bears are willing to get rid of him. And I think him and Ryan Pace are kind of tied together. And it looks like ownership really likes Ryan Pace and they really like Matt Nagy. And I don't think that Justin Fields fits that type of system that the Bears are trying to run. And I don't want another situation of we get a quarterback that is not the right quarterback for our type of system, and we try to force him to be something he's not, and then we're kind of stuck. And we could be better, but it's just like you can't fit a square into a round hole. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's just not gonna work. So that's the main thing in terms of the Bears right now. Maybe if the Bears are built differently, I would see it differently. I do think, however, both of those guys need time. They need time to sit, and I think as of right now, I mean, it sucks to say, but I don't know what the Bears are going to do to get to the Super Bowl. That's the goal right now. Like I know that that's what they're working under. Is like you have to win a Super Bowl right now. But out of all these college quarterbacks, I think almost all of them, except for Trevor Lawrence, could do really well. Like the year after they get drafted, like they sitting down and learning, I think it could really be beneficial to them. So that's one thing to consider too. I don't think either of these guys are NFL ready.
I think so. You're right that quarterbacks need to sit, but we both know that that's not going to happen.
That sucks though, right?
I think
because do you agree with me that they would do a lot better if they sat?
Yeah, I think there are very few situations where teams can afford to sit their rookie quarterback and basically not use him for a year of his contract. Like the Falcons are the only one. The Jets are not going to sit whoever they take, assuming they take a quarterback at 2, and why wouldn't they?
It's because they're afraid, and I get it. You're afraid because this is what the problem is, that say you sit a quarterback for a year and they turn out to be trash. You know what I mean? That's awful. You wasted a whole season, and then people will be like, you could have figured this out a season ago, but you decided to sit them. I get that. I get that 100%. Like, there's a lot of things where, sitting them for a season, it sounds bad because your fans might be mad for a season. But at the end of the day, if it works out, then they'll forget about it. The scary thing is the if it works out. And it's also not even just for the fans. It's for the team. Because now it's better to know earlier on if you need to move on than later on, because then it's less time. Okay, well, we know now we have to move on. It's like the Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen thing. They played Josh Rosen and they decided, oh, he's done. Well, so we got to move on immediately. And they moved on, and it turned out, I think, better for them. But you couldn't have figured that out if they didn't let him play,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But it sucks, though, because that's not the case for everybody. I think generally players, especially in the quarterback position, since it's such a high thought process position, you really got to know the game mentally to play it well, that I do think generally most quarterbacks should have more time to figure it out.
But unfortunately, that is not the world we live in.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that so much.
I do just want to say I greatly enjoyed the quarterback scouting process, and I'm excited to continue it with Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, and Trey Lance.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper too. We'll look at probably maybe the next two top prospects or next three after that, because they're gonna get drafted, so might as well talk about them. You know what I mean? And I think at the end we'll just do our own little ranking list of all the prospects. And who knows? They might be awesome and they might be bad, but we'll find out.
All right, on to the NBA.
All right. Do you want to talk about the Hornets?
Yeah, let's
Jazz?
start with Jazz Hornets. Jazz Hornets.
Okay. All right. Well, the game was looking pretty good initially. You know, it was a close game, you know. And then the Jazz decided to be the Jazz, and they kind of beat the Hornets really
and
bad.
that's all there is to say. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
No, but I did enjoy this game because I think both of these teams are fun to watch. You know that the Jazz have been my second team for a few years now.
Yeah.
And
Rudy
the Hornets,
Gobert, your favorite guy.
It's Gobert, Brandon.
Yeah, I know. You guys didn't hear it, but before we were recording, I said, what if his name was actually pronounced Gobert instead of Gobert? And we had a whole little discussion about that and everything, but so that's why I had to just bring it up anyways.
Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are two of my favorite players. And it's been very exciting for me to see the Jazz be the best team in the league this year. But also, I think the Hornets are a nice surprise. Obviously, LaMelo Ball is the big news story, but the rest of the team is taking some big steps, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're playing a lot better than they were a season ago, and I think LaMelo Ball definitely has a lot to do with that. I know it might sound corny, but I mean, no, he is really good. I think the only thing that's really holding them back is that LaMelo Ball isn't 3 years older. You know, I think he's still a little weak, essentially, for the NBA, because he's still a really big finesse player, and he probably always will. But I think eventually, when he gains some muscle and he's not, you know, he still has his kid body to an extent. I know it sounds crazy because he's like 6'7", but he's not.
But
he's not fully grown into himself.
Yeah.
Yes, and so there's a lot that you can't do when you're playing against grown men. You know, there's a lot that they're already established as what they're going to be physically, and you aren't yet. So I think that's definitely holding him back. But in terms of passing the ball, shooting, getting open, creating his own shot, he's really good at all that. And I think he just needs to get a little bit stronger, and who knows how good he's going to be then.
Do you think LaMelo Ball reaches Gordon Hayward levels?
Oh yeah. For 100%.
I do
100%
too. Yeah.
believe that.
Because right now
it's better.
It's technically still Gordon Hayward's team in my eyes.
Yes, I mean I think he's really good for that team. I think he's a good veteran leader. You know, I mean he's not the most. I feel probably like the most vocal leader, but I think in terms of leading by example, I think he's a good player for young players on that team. I do like the connection, though. I know I'm a big Miles Bridges fan, though, but like I do like the connection between LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges. I know he isn't like a numbers guy, but what I will say is that I think the stuff that he does that isn't on the stat sheet, I feel like is very helpful. Like he definitely plays really good defense, and he gets open when he can, when he can. But he is a dunker, you know what I mean? So he has to find his lane, and I think that for someone like LaMelo Ball, I think he could actually get him the ball to help him, you know, to help kind of feed the beast there. And Gordon Hayward, I think he just always is doing his job really well. Rozier is pretty good, but there are some somewhat consistency problems there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, when you look at the Jazz, though, it's like everyone on their team is good. Like, what is going on here? Everyone can score. This isn't fair.
I do just want to say first, Miles Bridges had this really awesome block. I think it was on Gobert. And when I saw this block, I was like, that's Brandon's boy right there.
Yeah.
You will forever be tied to Miles Bridges in my mind. Like, he's your guy.
Oh yeah, I like watching him play. I mean, because I mean, I grew up watching the Bulls, and they were a defense heavy team, and so I grew really liking defense, and liking the physical player, liking that stuff. And I feel like Miles Bridges fits that archetype in my brain. Like, yeah, this dude can play. I mean, I think there's a lot that he could still get better at in terms of shooting. I don't think he's a bad shooter. I just don't think he's always a willing shooter, which I think is probably why his numbers are a little low. But
Yeah.
but I think everything else outside of that, he's pretty good. I think he's definitely a really good role player, someone you definitely want on your team. But I love watching him just rise up and block people. I think his athleticism is unmatched with most players in the league.
Yeah, for sure. I do think he's a good bench piece. And another team that has good bench pieces is the Utah Jazz, whose bench absolutely went off in this game.
Oh my God. It was nuts.
I'm looking at the box score right now, and literally half of their points, 66 of them, came from the bench.
That's insane. Yeah. Everyone was playing well in that game. Everyone. Even people that generally don't play as that well. George, is it Niang? Or is that how you say it?
George Niang, yeah.
Yeah, that dude normally scores like 5 points a game, but he scored 21 that night. What is going on?
7 to 7 from 3. Like, the Jazz have so many guys who are hitting threes. Like, it's actually historic. I saw this post on Reddit earlier today, where the Jazz have 4 of the top 20 3-point performances ever, and they all happened in the past 6 weeks. They made 28 threes in this game. That's second all time.
That's insane.
And they're doing it consistently. They had Joe Ingles hit 7 threes. They had Jordan Clarkson hit 5 threes. They had George Niang hit 7 threes. And they're doing stuff like that consistently.
And the good thing is that they have a player like Donovan Mitchell that can score all around the court too. So, and he's not one of those people that just shoots threes, and just looking for the outside shot. I think that helps them too, because what I see when I watch Donovan Mitchell play is that I kind of see they're not the same player, but I kind of see how how Derrick Rose was for that Bulls team, where he kind of would do a lot of crazy stuff all over the court and it would leave other people open. I think Donovan Mitchell, like what he does on the court, leaves these other people open, and then they have really great ball movement on this team, and so that helps even more, And so I think because of that, their spacing is great. They're passing the ball, moving the ball, but everyone has to account for someone. Like everywhere on the court, someone can score. You can't just say, okay, well, we're going to stop this, because with the Jazz, you have to account, I feel like, for everything, and that's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, the Jazz are everywhere. Like Donovan Mitchell had an off game in this game against the Hornets, and he still led the team with 23 points.
Yeah, he's really good. What I will say, though, is I do think he has like that type of role on the team, like a Derrick Rose role for that Bulls team, but he plays so similar to Dwayne Wade. It's awesome. I love it. I love watching him play.
Yeah, I think he's a more physical Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, I don't know about the physical, but I will say I think that he's probably a better 3-point shooter than Dwayne Wade was. I think maybe Dwayne Wade was a little bit stronger, but at the end of the day, it's close. I think that in terms of their talent, it's very, very close.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking more of later years Dwayne Wade, because that was more of what I saw.
Yeah,
and by then he had sort of lost some of his physicality. But you're right, Donovan Mitchell reminds me a lot of him.
It's nice to watch. And Rudy Gobert, though, there were times though where I thought, dude, you need to step up and play some, like actually try to block someone. I know he's like a really great defender, but that game I thought you just let some shots go up. I know you guys are winning, but I don't know.
I saw that too. Like he is one of my favorite players, but you're definitely right. I can remember 2 specific plays where the Hornets were on the fast break and they got past midcourt. Gobert standing in the paint, and he literally doesn't jump to block their layups. He just lets them do it.
He didn't even put his arm up 2 times.
That was kind of frustrating to me. But if it's working, it's working, I guess.
Yeah, I think for a player like Gobert, he's always afraid of I mean, he's a great defensive mind, obviously. So he's probably thinking that they're going to pass it to someone else, but he might have not located that someone else. And so he's playing like the in-between. I get that. But at the end of the day, when they just pull up, right there and you didn't even move, it just looks bad optically. Right, yeah. But everyone is like, I won't say this type of play is probably I don't know if it's going to work in the playoffs. I don't think everyone is going to be the greatest of all time, in the playoffs. But it is nice to see because there is a lot of consistency, though, with a lot of the players. Even with a player recently, like Jordan Clarkson, which everyone thought that he was so bad when he was on the Cavs. But in his last 3 games, he scored 18 points, 19 points, and 20 points. In the season, he is averaging 18.3 points. And that's what you want from a player like him. That's exactly what you ask for. It's actually a little bit more than probably what you ask for. And so if he continues that, that's going to be really good for them.
Yeah, I think he's got to be a leading 6th man of the year candidate at this point, right?
Yeah, probably. He's playing pretty well. I mean, 18 points a game with the Edis, the 6th man. What more do you want? You know what I mean? Like,
you're right. That's a lot.
At some point, you gotta say, okay, you're doing a really good job. I'm just glad because I never thought he was that bad on the Cavs. I just felt, I don't know. I felt like when you're playing on a LeBron team and they're not doing well, everyone else is bad, apparently. Like, that's the media. They want to be like, everyone sucks on this team and LeBron is the best, which LeBron is the best, but it kind of makes everyone else look a lot worse.
I don't know if I agree with that because he was bad when he was on the Cavs. That Cavs team, I think it just was bad. I don't think that was a media thing. They were all bad.
I think that he wasn't okay. So he's definitely not as good as he was now, but I will say that they made it seem like he was the worst player on the team, and I generally did not think that he was the worst player on the team. I think he wasn't the biggest problem, but I think he was painted as the biggest problem. And it kind of brought his stock down as a player a lot. And I thought, well, he'll probably figure it out later on. He hopes things will probably get better for him. I just don't think that the how they wanted to utilize him was the best way to do it. They expected a lot more out of him than a player like that. A player of his caliber probably should be expected. I don't know. That was just my opinion, though.
Yeah, but the Jazz have figured it out now.
Yes,
and I'm seeing a lot of talk about the Jazz, like you said, not necessarily being a huge playoff threat. And can you tell me a little bit more about why you think they might not be a big playoff threat, if I understand that that's what you were saying?
Oh, no. I mean, I think they'll be good in the playoffs. It was just more of, I don't think that all of these players will be as good in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Because of just defense and stuff like that. I mean, like that dude, George Niang, is not going to do what he did this night in the playoffs. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but everyone else seems pretty stable, I mean, when you look at, I think Jordan Clarkson will probably do slightly worse. Donovan Mitchell's just going to go off. Gobert's going to be fine. Conley's going to be fine. Ingles going to be fine. I think everyone is just generally going to be fine. I think sometimes maybe people might be concerned with defense when they talk about that because, I mean, when you look at some of those players athletically, it looks like they probably could get a little dominated by some other talents in the league, But I think generally, I don't know. I think they'll be fine. I was just voicing I don't think it's going to be this awesome, Like it's going to be, we're destroying people.
I will say that the Jazz have the second best defensive rating in the league and the 4th best offensive rating in the league. So I think they're not getting enough credit for being as good as they are. Like, people are still acting like it's the Lakers and Clippers in the West.
Yeah.
And that rubs me the wrong way because they're not giving the Jazz their due for being as good as they are. And I think a part of that comes from them not being like your typical big star team. And I'm saying, I don't want to do the whole media thing, but I think it plays a part here because the media can't point to one guy and say this is his team. I actually think they could with Donovan Mitchell, but he's not there yet.
No, yeah, it's
so
true.
I feel like the Jazz are the favorites to win the West at this point, because I think they match up well with the Clippers. The Lakers do pose a problem. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
I think it's more of sorry.
I just want to say Quinn Snyder, like he's been a Coach of the Year candidate for 3 years running at this point. He's getting so much out of this team with mostly the same guys too.
Yeah, I think it is. It does have a lot to do with kind of the star power, because, like you said, I mean, it's not. If you don't love basketball, it's not going to be the most flashy stuff, So watching a Jazz game, it's not going to be, you're seeing all these crazy things happen outside of Donovan Mitchell. It's not going to be like you're watching a Lakers game and you have LeBron and AD,
right,
and they're going to be doing crazy stuff, overpowering people and just scoring from all over the court. And I know they said Donovan can do that, but there's just more to see like some other teams. And so with them, it's their passing is so great and it leads them to a lot of open shots. But that's not always fun for everyone to watch. Like, that's why so many people didn't like the Golden State Warriors, That's why, I mean, outside of... People did like them, actually. Some people didn't. But when they got KD, it's like the dislike really started to happen. But that's why some people didn't like watching the basketball, because they were just so open from the three all the time, and people were like, what is this game we were watching, Like, what happened to the mid-range game? What happened to all this stuff? And it's like, well, really, it's a beautiful game.
It is.
It's just not the same as what we used to be watching 10 years ago. It's a lot different now. It's not more one person takes care of the ball and then they kind of hand it off to someone else to take a shot, and then that's kind of it. It's no, we're going to keep on passing the ball until someone is wide open, and then they're going to take that shot.
I think you're right, yeah.
So I think that does play into it. And what I was saying about the defense thing is that I know that the Jazz are a good defensive team, but I was just saying what people probably think when they look at, just like looking at the Jazz, because the way they play, it's weird, right? It doesn't look like they're that great defensively, but they just are. It is weird. Like when I'm watching the game, I think, okay, like somehow this is working, but I think it's just because they just play very strict, like very well coached defense, and it doesn't always look phenomenal. It's not like a Miles Bridges block or a Zion Williamson block, that goes nuts. It's just, I'm going to stand in front of you. I'm going to play solid D. And if you score, okay, you scored, but it's not because I played bad defense on you. It's just because you got a really good shot off.
Yeah, and that's why I like them. That's why they are continuing to stay my second team.
Yeah, I think they're a pretty disciplined team, so I do like the Jazz a lot, and I'm so interested in seeing what they can do in the playoffs, because I think it'll be really telling of what Donovan Mitchell can do, and also that way he could shut up Shaq about saying that stupid stuff about Donovan Mitchell, because that was ridiculous to me, man. Like, what is this dude? This dude he's a great player. You know what I mean? What he did in the playoffs to say, I don't think you have what it takes. And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Did you not watch what he did last season? You definitely
the Shaq
did.
Stuff. It's just tiring. Like, Shaq does not do his job, and he's just. I'm not a fan of any of that either.
He's trying to be funny man all the time, but I don't know. Recently, I think he's been trying to put down players a lot, which I don't really get, but he has been. I know I think he feels a little upset about how much some of these players are getting paid, because he feels like I was a lot more dominant than all of these players in my day, and if I was playing in this day, I would still destroy all these players. And which you probably would, Shaq. Okay, I don't think anyone in this league could guard you. I mean,
but you don't got to be rude about it.
Like, I understand you're mad that you're not getting paid you didn't get paid $40 million a season. Okay. But like Matt Forte said it in football when he was talking about, he's like, yeah, if I was drafted into this league, I probably would be getting paid at least $10 million a season. I was drafted in the wrong time. However, what are you going to do? You can't go back.
Right.
And also, you made your money. Shaq is so rich. Like so rich. He made so much money outside of basketball. Is there really like that much to complain about, Shaq? You know, like he's a really great businessman. You know, he's making a ton of money. I don't know. To be upset about players making money, that seems anti-players. Like what? You know what I mean?
It does.
I don't know. Because like, what do you want? You want the execs to say, you know what? You're not as good as Shaq, so why should I pay you better than Shaq when the market is allowing, you know what I mean, demanding that they get paid more. I'm glad whenever the players get paid more. Some people are not on the same boat, but generally I think they're the ones giving us the product that we want. They're the ones giving the people the product that they want. So if anything, they should get a big cut of the money. That's how I feel. And they're not even getting probably the biggest cut of the money, but it is what the people see, because no one really knows how much the owner of the team actually makes every season. You know, no one knows that. But what would the owner have if he had no players? If he didn't have the talent, or if he didn't have the talent that he had, you know? Because like, it would be a worse league. You know, talent's getting better, more viewers, you got to pay the players more. And to be upset about the players getting paid, that just seems, why would you want that? If you were in the league right now, you would want to get paid. So what? It doesn't make sense to me, essentially, is all I got to say. So I'm happy for Donovan.
I think it's partially like the legacy thing, like he wants to be known as one of the best ever, but
everyone knows it already.
It just rubs me the wrong way. I vote that we move on to talking about something more positive.
Okay, I just want to say one more thing. That's it. Everyone knows that Shaq was one of the most dominant centers ever. Everyone knows this. This isn't news. This isn't a hot take. This is like so many people, NBA experts, all say that they don't think anyone could guard Shaq to this day. From all of basketball history, he has his respect. It's done. What more do you want? Okay, let's move on.
And let's move on to one of the future most dominant players of all time, a man named Patrick Williams.
I was like, what are you gonna talk about? I thought you were gonna say some, like, make a joke. I mean, you did make kind of a joke, but
I am
I thought you were gonna say Zach LaVine.
In that Patrick Williams is already the greatest basketball player of all time.
Heard it here first. Let me just lock that one in when that was I'm writing down the timestamp. Oh man. No, I mean, Patrick Williams, I think however, I do think in a few years from now, Patrick Williams gonna be pretty good. So I don't know. I think Patrick Williams has a lot of potential, but I think he still needs to get stronger. But once he gets stronger and he starts actually kind of bullying people down low, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, so something that struck me in this game against the Rockets is I am constantly surprised by how big Patrick Williams looks, even though he's only 215 pounds. Like, it feels like he's already banging down low with 4s and 5s all the time.
Yeah, right. It does look like that, because he just has, I think, he has like a wide body. I know it sounds funny. Yeah. But he has a very strong base, and so I think he can kind of use his body against anybody. He just needs, I think, to kind of grow into his body a little bit more, and get a little bit more physical. I do think for a rookie, he is super physical. I think Wendell Carter is just now starting to get to the physicality that he needs. But Patrick Williams is, I feel like, a little bit ahead of Wendell in that aspect.
I think so, too. That was actually one of my big gripes with Wendell Carter Jr. in this game. I was looking at his shot chart just to see if it matched with what my eyes saw, and it did, is that Wendell Carter does not really do any sort of driving or post moves. He catches passes in the paint and then lays it up, which is fine as long as it's working. But many times it just doesn't work. Like, he doesn't have the physicality that you want.
Yeah, I think he needs to throw that down, you know, because it just needs to happen. You can do it. You need to show people, I'm Wendell Carter. I'm going to dunk on you, because he can and he should. I think he has a problem sometimes where he doesn't want to be too physical, but I think he is so strong and he just doesn't use his body yet. I think he's just one of those guys that he doesn't know how strong he is right now. You know, it's like when you see a teenager that's really tall, you know what I mean? And they're playing basketball and you're looking at them and you're going, man, why don't you use your body? And it's like, duh, because they just got this body and they're learning how to use it. You know, how would they know how to use their body yet? It's like, okay, I think Wendell is kind of in that spot, but he is getting to the point where he is getting this adult man strength. You know, it sounds funny, but he doesn't know that he has it yet. And he doesn't know how to use it correctly. But I think once he figures out, hey, I'm a strong guy. People can't guard me like this. I think that'll do so much for his game. So much. I just want to see it. I just want him to go, I'm Wendell and I'm going to dunk on you. That's what I want to see. Honestly, I'm going to back you down. Like, what does get me upset too is because Eric Gordon, he's a really good basketball player, 100%. But there was this one part in the game, this one play where Wendell will try to back him down, and he didn't get low enough, whatever. But he backed into Eric Gordon, and Eric didn't move at all. And I thought, oh my God, dude, you are so much stronger than him. What is going on? This cannot happen.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying.
That's the matchup that Wendell needs to feast on.
Yes. He needs to go, oh, this is good. Start licking his chops and go, I'm about to dunk on you. You're never going to want to guard me again. You know, like disrespect people. Because I think that's what you need to do when you play basketball, with, like Wendell Carter does. Like, he is a down low guy. You know, he can shoot, but generally he plays down low. He does the scrapping, you know. He gets the boards. He's down there. He's ready to feed. But I think he just needs to actually try to make people feel bad when they're guarding him.
It sounds funny, but you're right. Like, there needs to be a level of disrespect, not in the really disrespectful way, but in the sort of like I have an ego because I know how good I am way.
Yes, he doesn't have to talk smack to them all crazy. He just has to show them what he can do. He just has to. I think Wendell has the abilities to dominate, to dominate people in the league. I think he has what it takes to be dominant down low. I think he's smart enough to even get open down low, and so he has open shots, and that's why he lays it up. Because I think he himself isn't a flashy guy in terms of how he plays. He's just like an efficient guy. Like, yeah, if I can score like this, okay, I'm just going to lay it up, whatever. No, but you have to show people. You have to instill some type of fear into people. You are an athlete. You are competing. You need to be a competitor. Like, that's something. I know it sounds funny, but how I'm saying this and how probably like into it I am right now. But it's just because I think Wendell, watching that game, I think he could be good, like really good. I just think he needs to accept what he can do. I think he needs to really just with full force, like a freight train, say, I'm Wendell Carter, and dude, you do not want to guard me down low.
I'm going to be looking out for that in the future. I want to see him say, I'm Wendell Carter, and you don't want to guard me with his body. I want to see that.
Right? That would be awesome. Do you think it's possible? Because I think it's possible.
I'm starting to sour a little bit because I'm not seeing a lot of like effort in that sense that you're talking about. But he's only 21. I can't get too ahead of myself with that. Yeah. It's definitely still possible, and I don't want to be that guy who gives up on a guy before he's 23. Like a lot of people did. How's this for a segue with Zach LaVine?
Yep.
Zach LaVine, our MVP, is, let me get his age. He is 25 right now, almost 26, and he's taken a big leap. Like when he was 23, he wasn't this good.
People aren't giving him his respect.
They are now.
It is what it is.
Like they're starting to come around
people
to it
could
now,
say he's on a.
But I think he.
But even now, people wouldn't say Zach LaVine was a 2 on a good team.
That. Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean, though, right?
I'm
see
definitely
that.
Still seeing some of those comments.
They wouldn't even say he's a 2. That's what's ridiculous to me. How could that guy not at least be a 2 on a good team?
It's the Bulls effect. Like the Bulls have been bad for years at this point, and they don't want to think that any Bulls player can actually be good, even if the evidence is right in front of them. So like people will be discrediting
Yeah.
anything Levine does. The most common knock on him is defense, where we've both agreed he's taken a step up this year.
Yeah, he's playing with a little bit more intensity.
And
I think he's taking it more seriously.
And as a scorer, he's taking it more seriously too. Like he is. Last I checked, he was a top 5 scorer in the league. Or actually, I think he was 7th in the league last I looked.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has everything it takes to be a really, really like great player in this league. In terms of scorers, I mean, there are times where he has better games than other games, but his bad games are still really, really good games.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like he isn't playing well every single game. I can't blame anything on him for this team. It's literally, if there's a problem, it's probably somebody else. I'll venture to say almost always someone else. Like,
yeah. So
because what more do you want from him?
In this Houston game, he scored 21 points. And that was tied for his 5th worst scoring performance of the season, 30 games in. 21 points, 5th worst scoring performance.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I've gotten into several discussions online whether or not this is Zach LaVine just carrying this team, because sometimes it is. Sometimes the rest of the team is just garbage. They're not making the shots. They're not moving the ball. They're not showing defensive effort. They're not rebounding the ball. And Zach LaVine scores 35 points and carries them to a win anyway. Sometimes that happens, but it's not always happening because the rest of the team is finally starting to look like a real team. Sometimes there is ball movement, there is defensive effort, there is rebounding. It's just a consistency thing. So people want to think that Zach LaVine is carrying the Bulls all the time because he's the one putting up the biggest numbers, but that's not the case. Patrick Williams is looking great. Wendell Carter Jr. is looking good. Thaddeus Young is Thaddeus Johnson.
He's a very smart basketball player.
He is.
I want to get into that.
I'm a big fan of Thad Young this year.
I don't know when you want to talk about that, but I do want to talk about that eventually.
Yeah, I mean, like, so actually, the Zach LaVine Thaddeus Young connection is one of the big surprises for me this year because it was not there at all last year.
What I like about Thaddeus Young is that he seems to always make the right pass. You know, his ball handling, not the best, whatever. But he's such a smart player that he knows when to get rid of the ball, generally, you know. And when he does, it's usually to a wide open player. I don't know why he gets so much attention when he goes in down low, you know. People are like, oh my God, Thaddeus Young has the ball. He's going into the hoop. I'm thinking, this guy can barely dribble. But, all right. And then someone's open. It's like, but it works. Apparently, he's really smart in pulling the defense in. And you're right, they do have a good connection. But I think he can find the open man all the time. It's kind of shocking. I knew Thaddeus Young was a good player, but actually watching him now a lot, you realize just how good he is on both sides of the ball. And I do like him a lot. You know, he's definitely. If you have a good team, we want a Thaddeus Young on your team.
Yeah, and last year, actually, I think one of the big reasons that it sort of is surprising a lot of people this year is because last year he was used so horribly. Jim Boylan had Thaddeus Young as a 3-point shooter, like almost the entire season.
Jim Boylan should never coach an NBA team ever again.
It was so bad, and he ruined Thad Young for an entire year. He ruined most of the team for an entire year, and now that. I think that put a chip on Thaddeus Young's shoulder, and he's picking up skills that he didn't have before Jim Boylan. He was not this good of a passer before them.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely good at everything else, you know. He's an all-around guy, you know. He is good at a lot of things, but I think he's really showing all of his talents here. You know, I really think he's really showing everything that he can do, and it's nice. I'm a big fan. You know, I like watching when Thaddeus Young gets the ball to an open player because I think, you know, this is nice. It's nice having someone that could pass the ball and find someone when they're open, you know? It's kind of like when Kobe White's on and then he's driving to the basket and then he kicks it out to someone that's wide open. I love when he does that. You know?
And he did that a lot against the Rockets.
Yes. And that is peak Kobe White. Like if Kobe White can have his three ball down and he's driving nice and he kicks the ball out, that's what you want to see. If that performance is what probably ideal Kobe White in your mind, that's top reaching his full potential type of Kobe White. If he could play like that consistently, dude, it's a wrap. Like that, he's a really good player. Then you can't take that away from him.
I think that was a really good game for him. And the stat sheet might not reflect his passing because he only came down with 2 assists. But I made sure to go back and watch, like, if that was like an actual fault of his that he didn't have that many assists. And I don't really think it was. I think he was passing well. It just wasn't necessarily being assist passes. It was more of the pass to assist credit.
And that is something that that obviously doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but is very important. If you pass the ball to the right person and then they get it to the right person, then that was a good pass, because the ball movement is important. Obviously numbers are cool for people, but if you're making the right offensive play, that's important. Sometimes, you make the right play and it doesn't work out. But I think generally that game for the Bulls, a lot of the passes they made were the right ones. And I would even say the way Kobe White played defense the other day, if he played defense like that consistently, he is so fast. I didn't think he was that fast coming into the league. I thought he looked faster against college competition, but I didn't think he was actually that fast, Mm-hmm. But he could be really good at swiping the ball if he really sets his mind to it. And so he did that a little bit that game. And I was very interested and very happy with what he did. And I think going forward, if he continues to play like this, then I would be very happy with how Kobe White is playing. I would be good with it.
Yeah, I'm still not necessarily sold on him being the starting point guard. I don't think there's a problem with him being a sixth man scorer, because I think he's excelled in that role.
Yeah, I think he could definitely do that. But if he played like this going forward, like if this was his standard, like his normal, then I would have no problem with him being a starting point guard.
This version of Kobe White is definitely a starter.
Yeah. But one thing I will say about Patrick Williams, though, because I know we did talk about that, but I don't think we talked about it enough. One thing I will say is I like his little kind of mid-range, but not mid-range, like baseline jumper thing. He likes to just pull up real fast, and he's so tall, and it's like his arms are so long that when he brings that ball kind of high up, and it's kind of hard to defend. He actually does it pretty fast. I really like it a lot. And a lot of people don't like that mid-range stuff, but if it goes in, it goes in. If you have a shot that is efficient enough to go in a lot, then you should take it, in my opinion. And I think that's a good shot for him, And I think it's good because basically I do think when people see Patrick Williams, they do think, oh, he's probably going to try to take it in. But I think that helps him because he's like, oh, I'm about to take it in. No, actually, I'm going to pull up right here, and I'm going to shoot right over you.
And that's something the Bulls have been lacking the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like Patrick Williams so much is because he kind of has this nice mid-range to down-low presence that I think that could open up your offense, if it's consistent. It's the same thing when I was talking about with Donovan Mitchell, except Donovan can score anywhere. The way they do it is different, but Donovan can score anywhere, and so people have to account for, everywhere being a possibility. When he goes in, you got to think, okay, he's about to score right here, so we got to pay attention to him, and then someone else gets open, and so I do like how Patrick Williams plays. I feel like he's not even close to how good he's going to be. I love that.
He's the youngest player in the league right now.
Man, I didn't even know he's the youngest. Wow, surprise! So what is he, like 19?
Yeah, he was the youngest player. Actually, he might be second to Pukashevsky on OKC, but he's been bouncing back and forth between the NBA and the G League. So sometimes Patrick Williams is the youngest player in the league.
Okay. I think that also, too, he's not even at the height of his athleticism. I think he still has a little bit of that. It's so funny. I feel like I talk about people in a funny way, but I feel like he still has a little bit of that like baby fat on him, I think he's still growing up, which makes sense because he's 19, right? So, or 20, right? Or is he 19? Sorry.
I closed out the tab, but he was 19 when he was drafted. I know that.
Okay, so he's probably 19 or 20, which, he still isn't even close to his athletic prime. I think he's going to get faster. I think he's going to get stronger. And I think these are things that are only going to help him. I think he has so much time to become a more polished player. And it's interesting because of his size, he could play down low, but I think he also has a good makeup to actually play it from the outside too. So I think in terms of a player like Patrick Williams, the sky's really the limit for him. I think Patrick Williams is kind of what we wanted Lauri Markkanen to be, but we wanted Lauri to be more of a three-point shooter. But Patrick Williams scores more on the inside. But the way he plays is what I feel like we kind of expect with the level of consistency at the very least with Lauri Markkanen. But Lauri doesn't show us that. I think like they're both players that physically have the tools to be effective in the league, but I think Patrick Williams is actually going to utilize those tools.
Yeah, I think that this is a deeper conversation that we can probably save for a later time, but I will say that Lauri Markkanen is... I think there's a discussion to be had on whether or not we actually want to keep him.
Yeah. I mean, if you could keep him at a low price, which I think might be possible, I wouldn't be upset. Kind of like as a backup guy.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can count on him to be a starter. Even like health concerns, it's just, I know you have to be on the court, like what do you have to play, you know what I mean? So that's definitely something you got to consider when you're playing a sport.
Yeah. And Markkanen aside, I think things are looking up for the Bulls.
Yeah, that was awesome to watch. I haven't felt good, watching. I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
The Bulls
I'm gonna sit down, watch their next game.
8th seed right now, and not that far away from a top 5 seed.
Yeah, are they like 2 or 3 games out of the 6th seed?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm looking at scores right now, and Boston is on track to lose today. Indiana's playing a close game. Charlotte's on track to lose. So these are good things for us.
Bulls are beating the Timberwolves right now, 98-93, fourth quarter. 10 minutes left.
By the end of the day, we could be the 6th seed.
Yeah, maybe. That would be something, man. We haven't been in that place in a long time, so that's cool. I will say, I do have a little mixed emotions, but as a fan, I love when the Bulls win. So that's what I'm gonna think about right now.
And that's all there is to it.
Yeah. But is there anything else you want to talk about today, or should we wrap it up?
Oh, let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. It's the Unbearabulls podcast. Like I said, we still need to talk about getting video in here somehow, which hopefully we could do. At least, if not all the time, maybe on occasion. Me and Jack are going to try to discuss kind of doing this live. And if you are interested in that, we'll probably make a Twitch channel, same name. And, it'd be cool because maybe at the end, or in the beginning, the middle, we have to talk about it. We could do a questions segment, or if you put some questions in while we're talking about something, maybe we'll respond to them once we're done with the segment. And I think that'd be interesting. But for right now, this will be on YouTube. And thank you for watching.